Look, I'm getting ready to do this. See, Sally come over here. Yeah, Sally. She came over here because when she comes over here, I always brush her. And but I can't do that right now. So looks like she went back to where she came from, and she's gonna lay back down. On the last note, last entry I made, I said, I think it was the last one. I recall him saying like, do it your way, like a song, by I think it's by Frank Sinatra. I think it's by him. I did it my way. I think it's one of his most famous songs. But I'd say like the crown of life, I did it my way. All right? No. So sometimes there can be a little conflict, with people push a certain notion that somehow you can't do it your way because God's way is not your way and your way is not God's way. But that is only a hypothesis yet to be proven. I get a lot of theologies and stuff written to persuade you one way or the other, just like in the court of law, with opposing, lawyers, or in theological terms they call them apologists. They call them apologists, and it ain't like apologizing like to somebody who did something wrong to you. No, it's like defense and winning the argument. It's an argument to win the argument. I'd say that. And anyway, I forgot how I got lost on that. Well, I got lost on that, I guess. Well, look, oh. Well, I'm talking about apologists and stuff like that, and attorneys. But there's a part of me that's thinking about the otherly realm, okay? Because they're like the guardians of the belief system. And, they'll make it work or not. But, in my time, I look back and when I was studying child and adult development, there were about 5 different rubrics of thinking started by certain individuals. Like, one would be like, as far as like, I think especially like child development, but okay, Erik Erikson is one I'm mostly thinking about because of his 8 categories. There was this other guy by the last name Adler. There were, I think there was like 5 of them. And I just had to be able to differentiate between who stood for what and everything like that. Just had to know what they were pushing and stuff, and the rationale behind it. And Erik Erikson's was one, and I think it had 8 stages of development, and the last stage was called generativity. And so, like, I'm in the last stage. I'm in the stage, but I know, he would, he's dead now. This is earlier stuff, like, I don't know, like 1950 or something. And anyway, generativity, so you get to a certain age in life, and then usually social structures, given, like all things being equal, you got the different categories, social structure, the characteristics of the day, the beliefs of the day, all that. Take all that stuff into context and consideration, You have to study things in their context, and you can't use history to your advantage. I mean, you got to be honest with it. You got to put things in their context. People like to make stories and stuff, or change history to have it suit what they want their reality to be. But anyway, his last day is generativity, and so that's where I'm at right now, and I'm thinking that's kind of a reason for this transitioning in and keeping my journal is a response out of that phenomenon that people my age kind of go into of generativity. I think it's like I'm having discoveries like in my thinking. They're the culmination of a lot of years, and they're just coming to me now. So I don't know. It's like the engine's been sleeping all this time, being built, and now it's started up. That's it. Well, that would be a good mythology for me to follow. But I think it's actually based on empirical evidence that, people like him, they provide in their work. I mean, they just don't pull this stuff out of the thin air or blowing smoke up in the air and then pulling out the dust. They don't do all that. No, their work is with integrity. And so, in my generativity, I was thinking, very lightly. I wasn't in deep thought or anything, but like just actually hit me as walking out to take out garbage in a bag in my trash can, and I just thought to myself, I already did that anyway. I don't want to go back there again. And that was being Jesus Christ. All right. So like I identified with the myth so much because Jesus Christ is the quintessence and the epitome of this certain spirit of redemption of mankind and unconditional love. See, that's what it is. Unconditional love and redeeming humankind and sacrificing his life in order to do it. And I said to myself, it ain't worth it. I don't want to do that again because it ain't worth it. Okay? So what I did is I momentarily merged my life with the life of Jesus Christ in my light, very light, kind of floating clouds of thinking. And that's why I say consciousness sometimes, consciousness precedes you. And before you ever think anything, it fires somewhere in your brain. They already know that. Before you even have a thought, something fires in your brain, and then you have a thought. That's a fact. So consciousness precedes you. And me. So these thoughts floating up in the air like that, Well, then I started thinking about Bob Dylan's Back Pages and using ideas as my maps. And see, look, if you're going to do it your way, You got to use your ideas as your maps. Right? Well, so there is no escape. This here process that Bob Dylan was talking about. You're going to stand on one truth one day. And then you're going to thank God the next because you didn't get knocked off your feet. And that thing didn't matter anyway. You know, bigger than what you thought. You were talking like a little peanut kind of little, you know, bag of peanuts, not a bag of marbles. Yeah. Anyway, you know, that's just by way of example. We use ideas as our maps, and if you're going to live life on your own terms, if you're gonna make up your mind what to do, you know, with good solid source behind you, and backing, and consideration, and thought, you know, of your trajectory and all that kind of stuff. You know what you really hope to accomplish. What you're doing is congruent with what your goal, what your mission and your goals are. There has to be a congruency there. Your actions got to support what you are trying to accomplish. Figure out what you want, and plan it out, and then stick to it. Well, you know, in reflection, I was just thinking about times when I identify with Jesus Christ, things I've done sort of in the same spirit of the life of Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm not saying like, you never know though, I mean, you don't know. But my thought was so deep that it was like as if I have lived, if I have walked in the shoes of Jesus Christ. Okay, let's put it that way. Walking in the shoes, you know, for a couple miles, so you know what the deal is, you know. Floating around in bubbles of scum for, you know, I don't know, a few weeks or a couple years. Figure out what it is. Anyway, that was a waste of time. They don't want to do that no more. And so actually, you know, I've suffered a lot helping people, and so now I'm like keeping myself, you know, like I'm not like, I don't want to get involved with nobody, you know. I got a mission right now. I got to take care of. I can't have no complications trying to mess me up. And but that's only one support in one of the objectives of the mission statement. That's a very subdelineated or whatever spot in peace. But that led me to another kind of thinking. See, as if it was possible that our vicarious experience in all these things that happen, you know, whether it's atrocity like, you know, like Hitler, or other atrocious kind of happenings and leaders, you know. No, I don't want to dwell on that. There's only very, very few. But all I'm saying is, okay, when you get that down, that energy down, that procedure down, that plot down, that script down, when you get that all understood, you know what it is, and you feel it, and you take one side or the other, and it might even be something you'd give your life for. All right. I mean, that's the depth I go. I don't like to remain shallow. I'm not entertained by shallow shit. I'm only the kind of person who only values, you know, purpose and mission. Mm. So, but in the purpose and mission of Jesus Christ, I got that. I know that. I know the ins and the outs of that feeling, of that knowing. And anybody out there? I don't know, I think my next neighbor talking to something. The dog started barking. I heard something, but so anyway, look, I kind of experienced it as though I was really like walked in Jesus Christ's shoes. And I said to myself, I don't want to do that no more. It's not worth it. Okay? That's what I felt. And then I say, what if? Well, so it's important to live these experiences and these myths vicariously. And, you know, sometimes going deep will save your life. If you're kayaking on a river and you get sucked down into a hydraulic, you know, they call this counterintuitiveness, you know, okay, because your natural instinct might try to swim up, get up to the top so you don't drown, so you can get a breath of air and breathe, right? Well, you know what? Your attempt to go up to the top is probably going to kill you. What you do is you got to go deep. You got to go deep, and you got to go down. You go down to the bottom, and then the current's going to push you out. The current at the bottom is different than at the top. At the top, it's a whirlpool, see? And it's sucking you down. You can't hardly get to the top. You'll die trying. So what you do is you got to go deep. Okay? You study the rules of nature in hydraulics, in water. It abides by rules. And the way rivers flow and stuff like that. And some people draw pictures of the currents and stuff like that. You know, and the point is, you got to go deep. And so I went deep into Jesus Christ. I mean, there's nobody. I studied on earth. I studied more than Jesus Christ. And everything surrounding that story. Right? The historic Jesus Christ. You know, the one recorded in Josephus, the historian. I studied it all. I don't doubt Jesus Christ. I don't necessarily believe, though, that the Catholic Church actually trying to tell the truth. It's the yin and the yang, man. There's always a little bit of black in the white, and there's always a little bit of white in the black. One way or the other, it's still going to work. All right? I'm just saying. It's still going to work. There's good and evil in the world, but you know what? It's still going to work. And not our fix, man. Not our potion. Don't say it's bad. Don't try to go along with the idea that well, I'm just saying. I'm not even gonna go there with this. I don't want to defend that, but I'm just saying that our experience with stuff should be vicarious. All right, that's it. And in my generativity, what I'm thinking it might be at this stage in my life, according to Eric Erickson. That come to understand that that is the experience. You know, it's a vicarious experience, and you have to be Jesus Christ. You know, it's hard for me to kind of say, you know, you have to be Hitler, but you know, because you don't want to merge your mind too much. It'd be torture. That's a place you don't want to go either. If we were Hitler, you have to, if you really had to think about him and stuff, you know, and put yourself in his shoes and all that kind of stuff. You wouldn't want. I don't think you'd want to go back to that experience. But look, you gotta you gotta put yourself in a person's shoes to actually make a fair judgment of them. And once you do that, you're more likely going to be more compassionate and understanding. And if you take it in as vicariously as it is yourself, then you realize that you don't ever want to go there again. Right. Put yourself in the shoes of everybody. For me, it was kind of a mystical experience. I mean, it just dawned on me in a vicarious way. Now I'm kind of giving you like the menu kind of interpretation of my experience, which was, you know, a personal kind of show. Like I felt like a show. Like I was showed this, you know, like it descended on me. I'm sharing it, so. But you know, I'm just saying, everything comes out of generativity, and I don't know. Boil it down, has to do with experience of things in a vicarious experience. And I recommend I recommend for myself the truth of what I experienced. I'm gonna soak it in. That's what I'm gonna recommend for myself. All right, bye.